of the reason why?
Yeah, it is. Leadership is. I taught PO before years, so I did management and leadership. So I knew that's what I did my teacher training in. But when I did this program with the ministry, we looked at it differently because education is not a business. It's a different time. It's not where you're counting dollars and cents. It's where you're dealing with people's lives. Okay? So leadership of the school does not mean that you go in each class and handle them. It means you have to allow the teachers the lateral and you allow them to the initiative and that pulls it up. Because when you have an IT department that drives you, and you know that, and once you listen to the ideas, because you allow the teachers to bring the ideas before you, they lay it out, you look at the merits, and you decide what you're going with. You have the geography department that drives you on the other side. You have the science department. So you have all these people coming in the ideas, and you as a leader, you listen to them, and you decide what is the best to help the school, and that's what will drive. So it's not just, so it's not any kind of one type of leadership style, but where you actually is where you allow the consensus to be built and you take everybody's ideas and see how best you can work it out.
All right. So, principals, we've spoken a lot about the strengths of the Convent High School. But what else do you think accounts for the success? And I specifically want to ask about this notion that Convent High School traditionally receives what we like to call the cream of the crop. And this is not new. When I started in 1992, I came into that talk that, you really get the cream of the crop, and some people might have the perception that that therefore it's not as difficult. How do you respond to that?
Okay, let me just refer to that cream of the crop. First of all, we have the prep section, which we consider part of the school, and not all prep students obtain scholarships or even bursaries. And irrespective of the position of the prep students, we take all of them in the high school. Mrs. Dublin can attest to the agonizing moments, honestly, that I would spend over each application. I'm not sure how it's done now, but in those years, and it gave a good feeling that people really wanted to come to the school. But we received many applications, and of course, we could not accept all. So, as a Catholic school, we felt that we had to admit many more Catholics than non-Catholics. So what I would try to do, I would go through the forms and even try to select a student from every parish, students who had applied, of course, so that we would have a spread then throughout from those who had applied in the different parishes. So it's not just the top students that we would take. There would be other factors involved. Siblings of children already here would also be admitted. And I mean, I suppose it's natural to expect reactions from people, because I can remember in one year, the bishop even called me because it seems some Catholics had written him to report that their children were not accepted. And here it is, I had taken some non-Catholics. I had to explain to him that we could not take all the Catholics who had applied. But it so happened that that same year, the non-Catholics who were not taken also reported, and that goes far back because at the time they had Pastor Bell. Anyway, yes, he even was going to call a meeting to see. So the non-Catholics then said that they were Dominicans, they paid taxes, and the school was not fully private. So they expected their children to come in, and yet I denied the non-Catholics. So I had to explain to the ministry, this is what we do, and show them the proportion of Catholics to non-Catholics. Okay, so we had problems really with that when we had to admit. So we just didn't go through the list and say, okay, we are taking 100, we take the top 100. That wasn't how we did it at all. So there were many other factors which came into play when we had to admit students.
That agony continues, I can assure you. And now we have less time, or during my time, and I don't know for Miss Prentice, you have, because the ministry sends it today, and in 2 days' time, you have to take it to the ministry. And we sometimes would spend, Miss Prentice is there, we would spend hours just going over, making sure different communities are represented. So it's not, and we try to please everybody, but you know what happens when you do that. I have a favorite response to the cream of the crop.
Let me hear it.
I say, yes, we get the cream of the crop. But if the cream is not well taken care of, it's going to spoil.
That's brilliant.
And I think what we have done is, whether they are cream or all of them are considered cream. And that's why we have tried to encourage a lot of the other aspects of school life. So we have promoted sports as much as possible. We've had a whole, should I say, almost like a period when clubs were just sprouting up. And most of the clubs were often at the students were the ones driving the clubs. All that we needed was to have a teacher who would moderate it. So we have all types of clubs. We have performance clubs. We have clubs for social action. We have a club that actually organizes to get material to provide breakfast on mornings.
All right.
You see? So it's true that we have the cream of the crop, and I think education is democratic in the sense that people have a choice as to where they want to go to. And if a child has done well at the grade 6 national assessment and wants to come to Convent High School, I think she also should be rewarded for that. But as Mrs. Levy says, this is not the only consideration.
All right. Ms. Prentice, I think the question remains even more relevant for you because we're dealing with the effects of universal secondary education and the students who are being admitted to secondary schools with differing skills. What is your process like in terms of your acceptance every September?
The acceptance is basically the same. You give everybody an equal chance. It's a level playing field. And we still continue to look for people in each community, Mount Prosper, North you make sure you take them. Then you have to look at the Catholics in those areas. Then you take Catholics from out of the district. Then you look at them. Now, it is said that we take cream of the crop, but we also get pressure because we are told, oh, my child got a scholarship, and you take a child that have D's and C's. So we don't always take it. What we do is that we take the children and we add value to what they already have. But people just assume that everybody in Convent is a scholarship. We've had a situation a couple years ago, Mrs. Zabin, where a child who placed top in the common entrance did not even graduate, whereas somebody who came in with just a bare pass, a very low pass, she graduated. So children are different stages, and it's the value we add here as well as the home support. That's what takes the children. So we don't only we take all of them. And as I always say, if they are the cream and they're giving us problem, you can imagine what the others will do. So we take everybody. It's not that I had 2 years ago, was it? A parent and a child took me to task because I didn't take her, and she worked so hard to come to Convent, and I took children that have E. So it's not that people, it's people's perception.
I think one of the basic takeaways there, and it might sound simplistic, is that the Convent High School really does take students with D's and E's. I think there's a misconception that you probably don't, but you do. Just to indicate to our listeners that we have about 10 to 12 minutes left in this discussion, and I want to broaden it a bit by bringing you in, Mrs. Levy, because you can refer to your vast experience. I wonder, what are some of the changes, the differences you've observed in terms of schooling in general in Dominica and our general approach to education?
Well, first of all, you do have, as they mentioned, the universal secondary education. You also have the technology, because, I mean, right now I understand that the students even apply via the computer when they want to enter school. So that really is a big change. In terms of what is expected of parents, I doubt if that would change, because the goals remain the same. And education, I don't think that the goals would have changed, to educate the whole person. So therefore, you try to reach out to the entire person. But society has changed. And I think both Mrs. Dublin and Miss Prentice, you referred to the the mental development of the children. You know, in the past, we know that that was kept undercover. If a child, well, let's say, was abused in any way, nobody spoke about it. It was a big secret, maybe out of embarrassment or shame. But I think there was an explosion, and it really started, while I was there also, that one became aware that it is not just teaching the child the academics, that if the child was insecure in any manner, then you would not really get much from the child. So I think we started then, and we started linking with the ministry, with the welfare division. Of course, names are never mentioned, but I had a few cases where I had to get in touch with the welfare division because children were really, sexually abused in the home, and we had to get help for them. One child was even taken out of the home and put elsewhere. So we started helping. I imagine now it is even worse. But in those days, really, that was just the beginning of it, and we tried to link with the welfare division to see what help we could get. Other changes, well, these are minor. I had to order all the books for the prep as well as the high school in those days.
Yes.
Right now, I think the ministry has to stamp its approval. But because again, the teachers, heads of department would suggest textbooks which they felt would benefit the students, and I would order the books. I still remember the prep had some lovely books, Cop Clark mathematics books, and then the phonics books that they used also. So order the books, and they would be sold from the school. So that aspect of it, has changed. I think the children go down and they get their books from the ministry. Again, there were fewer scholarships, so you had to deal with the parents who had to pay. Not all parents were able to. I know part of what you were talking about was the attitude of the parents. Parents, I must say, and I got a support. I got a lot of support from parents. There were some I could count on, and even a couple of them, merchants, would provide money because there were a couple of students who needed help. And I would give that money to the students so they could buy meals for themselves. Even one Christmas, so they could buy a Christmas dress, whatever. So I had support from members of the community, from parents, and even from students themselves. And that I remember one student coming into the office because there was some neglect in the family. And her brother had got into trouble with the law because there was no parent around. And, there are certain moments, and she came in and she said, "Miss, if my brother had a principal like you, he would not have been in trouble with the law." And I mean, it really touched me to see that she saw it that way. So there were other moments really which gladdened the heart, moments of excitement. In my time, there was this, when you remember Nisha Burton was the top student in the entire Caribbean.
I remember your
in
pride.
CXC, so naturally that gave a moment of pride. Then there were also other moments. I got a call once, imagine, from John Hopkins University, and they wanted to know about the small Caribbean island and the school which had produced such a wonderful student. I think it was Nicole Larond, in fact, who was there at John Hopkins, and she had given my name. And I had got a call also, either from MIT or Harvard, when Janelle Prevost was there, saying it must be a wonderful school. So these were moments which made you feel good because you realize what is the mission of a school anyway? Why do parents send their children? But if not to realize their full potential, that you succeed in whatever area that you want to, but you have to do the groundwork, you have to become a full, mature person in order really to achieve that potential.
Okay, so we have your standout moments, Mrs. Levy. And Ms. Prentice, I don't think I'll put you on the spot with this, but I do want to ask Mrs. Dublin, as a former principal now looking in, Are there any policy directives, decisions that you would like to see which you think could better serve the education sector in Dominica?
I've always said, and it kind of goes back to Mrs. Levy, that what we were talking of earlier on, that if there was greater equity among schools, then that discussion about cream of the crop would not occur. And I've always said that I would wish that if I had a magic wand, where I would make schools as equitable as possible, so that what we have at Convent High School could be replicated in every school in Dominica, be it primary or secondary. Because you see, I'm looking at it also from the experience of this week, from last week. And when students can tell you, I mean, it's like a breath of fresh air. After 20 years, they are remembering the school song. When I think Miss Prentice, the secretary, and I went to a public place, and I think one of us must have skipped the line. We didn't skip the line, we went the wrong way. And the lady says, "No, I'll have patience with you because you all had patience with my daughter."
Oh.
I think this is more than any check can cover. And I don't know, it's really something. I mean, I've been long associated with the school and I am so happy. But what I would like to see, if that can be replicated, and sometimes I get the feeling, and some of my staff say so, that maybe that is not appreciated by some parts, some sectors of the public, where people feel that, oh, we cut styling, or who we think we are, when I think maybe people should look at what is excellent and let us see what we can do that we too. They can't take the same thing, but what can we do at our schools so that our schools can be what Convent High School is to its students, that our students can get that same experience. I always believe that a positive school experience is the important thing. And this is what I'm seeing coming through the last days here. Where, I mean, you have girls all overseas, and thank God for the internet, that they themselves can be saying, "Oh boy, those wonderful memories." I mean, they are gushing. Who's getting goose pimples? So I think we really need, for education, to have more equity. And I say equity, not equality. You cannot be Convent High School, but if you are St. Martin Secondary, you have your strengths, you have your mantra, you have what it takes for you to be your school. And that is what I'd like to see for all schools.
All right. I certainly do subscribe to the concept of emulating best practice, and I think that's one of the good nuggets of advice I've heard this evening. So, Mrs. Levy, and we are winding down, we heard from you that your best memories are when your students excelled. For example, Nisha Burton, who got the regional award, I think, in
Or, as I said, when parents tell me how much they appreciated it and what their children got. So not just the academic excellence. I mentioned the student who said, that she wished her
Yes.
brother, she had a principal that she would just come in to talk and I would listen to her, give her advice and whatever it is. So that's what, she showed some kind of appreciation, and I was happy that she got something out of it, really.
Right. Mrs. Dublin, what are your best memories as principal of a Convent High School? The moments that stand out for you?
To me, every day was a great day. And to me, it was a general kind of wave, if you will, of students' appreciation of what we do at school. The fact that students can be independent, that they can, like the clubs I'm telling you, that at their own initiative that they got. The fact that our teachers would also, I mean, when I look at Leandra, I've seen her blossom.
Oh, she's wonderful.
I've really seen her blossom as a student and also as a teacher. And there are other teachers like that. The fact that I could, without bothering and losing too much sleep, be able to pass the baton to Miss Prentice, and there was a Miss Prentice to pass it to. I think those are important. But I want to go a little further. They say thinking out of the box. But maybe a moment also would be the fact that I am dreaming of a new school for Convent High School, a new plan. It's a dream, but it's a great moment. And it was almost as if I I telegraphed Hurricane Maria because when I was leaving, that was what was the thing in my resignation letter that I informed the bishop. We need a new school plant. This lady is over 100 years old, and she's falling apart. So I really want to live that dream, and I've already kind of even conceptualized what it should look like. As Miss Prentice, I have some plans in my head and on scraps of paper. But I think a new school plant where Convent High School can take the digital platforms and tools and the use of 21st century skills that our students can even function better. But for me, I found that even after Hurricane Maria, when we could really continue teaching in a remote fashion, that we had been with Google Classroom from its inception. And it's easy now to be able to tell principals, okay, don't worry about what's happening now, it's going to get better. Another shining moment was, while we talk of Maria, there was Tropical Storm Erica. Both Miss Prentice and I were out of state, and I could, with one email, send and contact all members of staff and students. I live on that note.
Miss Prentice, as the current principal, what are the moments that bring you most joy in your job?
Brings me most joy. Well, okay, I'll begin with 20th of September 2017, when I came to Roseau for the first time, Convent High School. Within 3 weeks, we were able to resume school. This, I think, was my best. In spite of getting flack for it, I felt we needed to do that to restore some kind of normalcy. And it was just nice getting my staff back, getting parents together, getting staff, and just having the school. To me, that stands out for me. The other joy is just seeing how the students are enjoying the moment. We provide them with both the academic and the extra and co-curricular activities. They are thriving under it. They are accepting it. We cannot provide all, because as Mrs. W said, we need a new plant. And still I'm with her. I told her already when she gives up superintendent, her job is to sit down and help me to look for the funding, because we have to build a new plan that will accommodate all our extra and co-curricular activities. So every time you turn around and you see our students and they pass back and say thank you. And I think this week's anniversary is a real shining point, because you see all your girls and you see the successes over the years. Because I was not principal, but I taught quite
All
a
of
bit
us.
of. So to see where they have reached, and it's just really a joy.
Yes. I'd like to thank you, ladies. I don't know if you feel that this is a little bit abrupt, so if you have any closing thoughts, we welcome it. But I would like to thank you for agreeing to sit with us. And I'm sure some of your former students are tuned in and they've been very thrilled to hear from you. I'm really looking forward to your successes, Miss Prentice, with a new plant. Mrs. Dublin, I hope you can help her as much as possible. And Mrs. Levy, we hope to see you throughout. We love it when you're around. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the principal's desk. I think this is something you should continue every year during the anniversary. Just a reminder to you that you should join us again tomorrow for another assembly, this time led by the students who attended school from 2000 to 2010, and on Friday from 2011 to 2020. Of course, I don't know how they're going to follow up on the assembly led this morning by the classes of the 1990s, but we'll certainly be glued in. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Good evening.
Thank you for being such a great host.